Under the scorching sun of a remote military base, a group of recruits trained in the dust, their boots pounding against the ground, their sweat dripping into the dirt, the air thick with the smell of oil and metal. Among them was a young woman named Sarah Kane, new to the base, new to the world of discipline and command. Her uniform was crisp, her salute perfect, yet her presence stirred whispers around the barracks. She was different, too calm, too composed, too mysterious. No one knew where she came from, no one dared ask her directly. For the first week she kept to herself, quiet, polite, efficient. She completed every drill with precision. She never missed a target. She ran faster than most of the men, yet every time she entered the mess hall the laughter would fade, the conversation would turn to mocking jokes. She was the new girl in a world that didn't forgive outsiders, and behind the sneers were men who had been at this base for years, hardened and proud. The unit's captain saw her potential but also saw the tension building. The men didn't like her, she was better than them in every skill, but rank didn't favor her, not yet. On the morning of the 7th day a new endurance drill was announced. 50 pounds of gear, 5 miles of rough terrain under strict supervision. Sarah stepped forward, ready, her eyes steady, her posture firm. The others smirked, waiting for her to fail. Halfway through the trail, one of the senior recruits, Jake, stumbled intentionally into her, knocking her down. She rose without a word and continued running, but the whispers followed her. Coward, muttered one, weak, said another. When they returned to base drenched and exhausted, the instructor ordered them to spar in pairs, hand-to-hand combat. Sarah was paired with Jake, the one who had mocked her. She removed her helmet, tied her hair back and nodded for him to begin. He lunged at her aggressively, fists flying. She dodged smoothly, blocking and countering with calculated precision. The watching crowd began to notice her calm movements, her control. But Jake's pride couldn't take it. He rushed forward, grabbed her by the shoulder and kicked her violently in the head. She fell. The room went silent, blood on her forehead. She didn't move for a moment. The instructor shouted for him to stop, but Jake only sneered, saying she shouldn't be here anyway. The recruits stepped back. No one dared move. Then slowly Sarah rose to her knees, her eyes dark and focused. She stood up straight despite the pain. She stared directly at Jake and said softly, "You just made a very big mistake." The instructor ordered everyone to stand down, but the damage was done. The unit laughed nervously, unsure what would follow. She walked quietly out of the training area to the medical tent, refusing assistance. Her silence was unsettling. She didn't file a complaint. She didn't say a word for the rest of the day. By evening the base's communication tower received a coded transmission. An unknown clearance level message was received marked Omega Authority only. Within 20 minutes 3 black helicopters appeared over the horizon, descending in perfect formation. The sound of their rotors shook the ground, dust swirling around the training field. Every soldier on the base froze. The helicopters bore insignias no one recognized from the Defense Command. Out stepped 3 men in black uniforms with gold insignias, not local, not national, their faces unreadable. The lead officer, a tall general with silver hair and piercing eyes, walked straight past the guards without a word. The base commander rushed forward, saluting nervously. "Sir, we weren't informed of any inspection." The general cut him off. "Where is she?" The commander hesitated. "Sir, who?" the general repeated slowly. "The girl." Panic flickered across the commander's face. He called for the roster. Within seconds they led the general toward the medical wing, where Sarah sat quietly on a bed, her head wrapped in a bandage. She stood. When they entered, the general's expression changed instantly. He saluted her. The entire room went silent. Every soldier, every officer frozen. She nodded faintly and said, "At ease, General Ross." Whispers spread through the hallway. She wasn't just a recruit, she was someone far above their understanding. The general turned toward the commander, his voice cold. "Who authorized her placement in this unit?" The commander stammered, explaining that her records were classified, sent by the Defense Board. The general's jaw tightened. "Classified by me." The 3 generals then ordered the entire base to assemble on the parade ground. Lights flickered across the dusty yard. Soldiers lined up silently as the night fell. The 3 men stood before them, Sarah beside them, her head still bandaged. The general stepped forward, his voice echoing across the open air. "You men disgraced your uniform today. You attacked one of our own, not just a soldier but someone whose record you could never comprehend. Confusion and fear spread through the crowd. Jake stood near the back, pale sweating. The general's aide handed him a folder. He opened it, revealing an identification card with the emblem of the Global Defense Command. Admiral Sarah Kane, Division Commander, Special Forces Intelligence Unit. Murmurs erupted. She was an admiral. The general's voice grew darker. She was assigned here under covert observation to evaluate discipline and integrity. This unit has failed its test. As of this moment, the 21st Training Battalion is disbanded, effective immediately. Gasps filled the air. Soldiers looked at each other, stunned. The commander tried to speak. Sir, please reconsider, but the general raised his hand. One more word and I will consider your command terminated. He turned toward Sarah with respect in his tone. Ma'am, orders from headquarters confirm your transfer. She nodded silently, walking toward Jake, who now stood trembling. She stopped in front of him, looked directly into his eyes and said, I could have ended your career the moment you touched me, but I wanted you to see what arrogance costs. She turned away, leaving him frozen in silence. The generals saluted her again before boarding their helicopters. The roar of engines drowned the whispers as they lifted off, disappearing into the night. The soldiers remained motionless, the once proud unit now humiliated, broken and silent. The next morning the base gates were sealed. Investigators arrived, removing files, computers and weapons racks. No one spoke of the incident officially. Every soldier was reassigned, every record scrubbed from the system. Weeks later, at a high-security defense meeting, the generals discussed Operation Sentinel, a covert project to test leadership under anonymity. Sarah Kane's mission report sat on the table, her evaluation clear: lack of integrity within lower ranks, immediate reform required. Outside the chamber she stood, looking out over the city skyline, her reflection sharp in the glass, her bandage gone, a faint scar marking her temple. She smiled faintly, whispering to herself, sometimes it takes being underestimated to see who people really are. But her story didn't end there. Months later she reappeared at another base under another name, another test. This time the soldiers would be warned that not everything is as it seems. Back at the disbanded unit, Jake never forgot that night he was demoted, sent to a remote post where the silence of the desert reminded him every day of the mistake he made. And somewhere in the files of the Global Defense Command one name was marked under classified clearance level Omega: Admiral Sarah Kane, status active, mission ongoing. The wind carried her story across bases, whispered in training camps, told as a warning. They kicked her once, but what followed changed everything. 3 generals had come not for punishment but for protection, because she wasn't just one of them, she was the one who commanded them all. And so the base that mocked her became a memory, a lesson written in silence and fear, a place no one spoke about again. Yet every soldier who heard the story remembered the line she left behind: you never know who's standing next to you until it's too late. From then on, every new recruit trained with caution, respect and a quiet fear that the next new face might not be ordinary, might be another shadow from the command sent to judge their hearts and their honor, just like Sarah Kane. Her legend lived on, not as revenge but as reform, because in the end she didn't destroy them for what they did, she exposed them for who they were, and that was far worse than any punishment they could have imagined. The story became military myth, told under flickering camp lights, whispered through ranks and remembered by those who dared to forget respect, until it reminded them again who really holds power when the silent ones decide to stand up.